Second half hammer at College Park, and Michigan remains unbeaten. Good evening, everybody. It's all over out in Maryland at College Park, Michigan, with a big victory. If you didn't watch this one, you look and see Michigan won 101-83, and Michigan was a 17.5-point favorite. It didn't look like they were going to win by that many, but in the end, they do. We're here to talk all about it like we do after every Michigan basketball game here on the Maize and Blue Review, a part of On Three Rivals. It's great to be with you on this Saturday night. Make our way into the holiday season, and Michigan in this game, you might have been feeling like years past, any other year where you would watch a Michigan basketball game where the team heads out on the road and you might be a little frustrated and you're thinking maybe a few things in your mind that, this is a team that, might end up losing this game. They don't look very good. And the other team is throwing it in from everywhere. And, this could end up being a long night. The long and short of it, it looked like Michigan, there was a few minutes where you might have thought that this was going to be their first loss of the year. But then in the second half, even though Maryland came out and hit a three right out of the gate and got up 8 and got up 9. Those thoughts again, I think, were in your head. But then Michigan really flipped everything. And I would point, and if you're looking at the box score, which we will do, you'd point to Yax, who went off and was incredible. But this team, they showed you why they are a formidable group, and they might be and they are the kind of team that can win it all, because they, in a lot of respects, there was a lot of spots and a lot of players that didn't have their A game, and yet, they were able to still dominate down the stretch and win this one going away. Couple keys in this game, and a couple things that will be something to remember if you're a Michigan basketball player. And I will guarantee that Dusty will get asked about it, and then Dusty will emphasize what happened in this game moving forward. And that is you had two starters for Maryland leave this game. One because of injury, and that was Payne. And he's their number one player. He's their best player, and he goes down in the first half with I thought it was an ankle injury, but then he had a huge wrap on his knee. He did come back to the bench, and that was gigantic. But then a player, Washington, also one of their frontline players, he picks up a tech in the first half. Maryland was knocking all these threes down, and he looked over to the Michigan bench and taunted them. I don't know what he said. Take that, you MNFers, probably something along those lines. Just looking over there, you wouldn't think saying "got you again" or whatever that they would tee him up, but they did tee him up. And then in the second half, underneath, little jostling, and I don't even know if the Michigan instigated it or not, but it was a pretty benign push that he had of the Michigan player. Now, look, when you already have a tech, you shouldn't even breathe on another player. I mean, that's on him. But it was also a very, I would say, nickel and dime technical. But again, when you have one, you got to be on, totally on guard. Now you got to be a Boy Scout. And he wasn't. And he ended up getting his second tech, and he got thrown out. And Michigan went on a 41-17 run, and it was over after that. Even though they still, were hitting some threes, but they ran out of gas, and they didn't have, their two players down low. The emphasis, Brando and Jimmy Jackson talked about that there was an emphasis. I don't know if they said there was an emphasis on taunting the opponent's bench. That wouldn't surprise me, but they made the point that it was an emphasis of any kind of jostling or pushing that they pointed out. And if that's going to be the case, if you're Dusty, it's a great learning experience for Michigan, who will be in some big games. Say, look, knock down all the threes you want, celebrate with your own players, but don't look over at the opponent's bench. Don't get in their face. Don't stand over them. Don't do what Maryland did, because you hit a three, and these guys watch the NBA. It's like, hey, NBA guys get technicals all the time. NBA, you shoot one free throw. In college, you shoot two. It's pretty big. It's a lot bigger deal. Twice as punitive as what goes on in the NBA. So you don't talk to the bench, and then obviously, if you get hit with one tech, you're on probation. You don't want to mess around, but that will be for Washington and what he'll need to learn. But if you're if you're Michigan, you say, look at the emphasis here on calling the technical. Stay away from that kind of stuff. It could end up costing you a game, and it ended up as a big part of costing Maryland a game. Maybe Michigan would have beat them anyways if Washington doesn't get thrown out. Maybe they would have beat them anyways if Payne doesn't hurt his leg. Probably the way Michigan was playing. But let's go through some of it. And again, I think the thing with this game is that in years past, when you see some of the players not having their best night and you see Maryland throwing it in from everywhere, you say that this is not going to be Michigan's game. And then they still end up winning it going away. That's impressive when you're a good team and you're playing the way that Michigan does. And I think, how they did it. And again, Yaks was incredible, but it was Elliot Cadeau driving the lane, and he would spoon feed Yaks. He would throw an alley-oop for Mara. He would drive in, and then he would take the layup himself. Points in the paint, and then it was Yaks throwing the ball down low. And Morez Johnson Jr., who's been excellent for Michigan this year, he didn't have his best game, but then late in the game, he was able to come in, and they were feeding him. And this is, to me, if there's a lot of things that Michigan does really well and what Dusty May has going, but Morez Johnson Jr. doesn't have to have an excellent night every time out for Michigan to win the game. Michigan is so loaded on their front line. They've got three guys that they can depend on their front line. Most teams do not have anything close to that. The impact guys, that go-to players, star players. Mara is a star player. Yaks, of course, is the five tool, everything. And so is Morris Johnson. And if one of those guys don't have the best shooting night, rebounding night, they get into foul trouble. Morris Johnson Jr. did tonight. Those other guys can pick up the slack. That's one of the great things about this team, their depth. And it's too deep at every position, but it's really, when it comes down to the paint and the size that they have. And Mara is 7'3", but he has the 7'7" wingspan. Yaks is in MJJ, those guys are only 6'8", 6'9", but they have 7'4" and 7'2" wingspans. And you see it play out like that when you're watching them. They control the game defensively. Rebounding wasn't they were getting out rebounded. Be interesting to see what the totals were at the end, but they were at the half, just like they were down. But that's when you can pass like Michigan, you have the depth like Michigan, and you have the coaching and the players and the wherewithal to continue to stay within yourself, and the points in the paint. It was Michigan, man. Points in the paint, passing, those would be the two things that I would say why Michigan ended up winning this game. Now, in the first half, as we mentioned, and it was Cadeau, Burnett, Mara, Johnson Jr. and Lindenborg as the starters like usual, but the Terps hot shooting in the first half. They hit 10 threes. They were out rebounding Michigan, and the Wolverines found themselves facing their first deficit. Remember their previous games, previous six, the games were over at half. I mean, it was like, okay, time to go out. That's it, or whatever. You don't even have to watch that closely. It's just all, hey, it's showtime. Let's see, but you didn't have that feeling, obviously, in this game with Michigan trailing and giving up 50 points. You're like, where's this great defense? Where's all these guys contesting? How about, some 3-point field goal defense? Sure. He would, I think that they were in favor of that. But so Michigan gets down 9 pretty much right out of the gate in the second half. But then after that Washington injection, they go on a 41-17 run that ends up being the ball game as Michigan would go on and score over 100 points again, and they win it 101-83. We'll get some of your feedback for the folks that, this is, it's new. It's new for me. Last year, Michigan was good. The year before, they weren't, with the end of the Juwan Howard era. And I would do these games, and you would have diehard Michigan basketball fans. You'd have 10, 20 people that would come in. But now, man, this team is on fire. They're so enjoyable to watch. They're like the pro team, the Pistons, who go out there. They play the right way. They have a bunch of players that you look at, you say, and it's funny. I don't know, funny, not ha-ha. It's funny that Cade Cunningham and you get Bickerstaff and you get a coach and you get Duran, you get the rest of the team. They're a joy to watch. And it goes back, Larry Brown, the Pistons coach, when they won the championship, to go on to work Pistons. He'd like to say, they play the right way. When a basketball team is unselfish and they play the right way, it's a wonderful thing to watch. It's so entertaining to just sit back and say, these guys, and then each and every one of them, they feed off of one another. It's just it's why you show up to support your team and watch them, and then you get teams like this, and then you have to hold on to them and enjoy them because they're awesome that way. And this Michigan team is like that. Let's get our Maize and Blue Review player of the game, and this is going to be an easy one for everyone. You can just say it. Maybe say it with me. Yaxel Lindenborg. Where is it? There it is. Yax does it all tonight. He was awesome. We have seen it, not the first couple games, but then he got it going, and then it was pretty awesome. And for Yax, I mean, the stat line, I could sit here for an hour and just look at the stat line, and it'd just be like a lot of oohs and ahs when it comes down to what Yax was able to do. This thing was a Rembrandt for Yax, who has 29 points. He has 8 rebounds and 9 assists. That's awesome. You're close to damn near putting up the triple-double. He also has 2 steals and 3 blocks. But really, look at some of the other numbers here. People say this a lot in sports now because it's a big thing that people, he's very efficient. Yax was, maybe his nickname should be efficient. He was 9 of 9 from the free throw line. That's efficient. 4 of 5 from downtown. It's pretty easy to come up with the numbers. 80% from 3. Very efficient. And then 8 of 11 field goals in 37 minutes. You're not going to get any more efficient than what Yaxel Lendenborg was tonight. I might fill up the Borg tonight with the way that he's playing and just start going. And the thing is, he is a star that doesn't have to have the ball every time down. You know, you say, give him a touch. I'm sure they talk about giving him a touch. He's very unselfish. He lets the game just come to him. You know, he doesn't. There's so many times. It was even tonight. There were a few times where he had already made some threes, and it was early in the clock, and Michigan goes pretty quick, anyways. But he was open. I'm like, throw it up, Yaks, go ahead. But he didn't. And you know, he's finding his teammates. He's looking for. He's unselfish and efficient. He is a great player, and he's got a great attitude and a great personality. I mean, he's everything. Lendenborg is everything that you hope for and more. I mean, what can you say? I don't know how much money he got NIL-wise, but he is worth every dime. What a hell of a player that Michigan has in Yaxel Lendenborg. We can sit around in a lab and try to create the kind of college basketball players that you'd want somebody who's very unselfish, has some size, can shoot, is a good free throw shooter, can play defense, can block shots, can get steals, can run the floor. He checks every single box. And you would come out after spending all that time in the lab, and you would unveil when the curtain comes off, the player, and who would be standing there would be number 23 in the maize and blue. If you were building the perfect basketball player, here he is. And Michigan's got him, and it's great to watch. He's worth the price of admission. He's someone that has lived up to everything that you would hope that he would be. So far, so good when it comes down to Michigan and Yaxel Lendenborg. I talk about, some of your favorite players and what you like about him and everything else. He has all of those things, every characteristic that you would want. And the best part about it all is that there's an unselfishness to him. You might want, you would say, maybe a killer instinct from him, where even more, maybe he should shoot more. But I'd leave that up to what they have going right now. I'm not going to push that too much because they've got it, So kind of like, okay, you want to be a 5-tool player, efficient, and do it. Monday, it was Dusty who indicated that Yaks is taking 3 times more 3-point shots than he did at UAB, which is a lot more. Obviously, that's his volume of shooting outside has gone way up. Now at UAB, he played the 5 or the 4, mostly the 5. A center, down low. There were a lot of people saying, and I was thinking that myself after watching the 2 exhibition games and the way they were throwing it in the paint to him against St. John's, and he was getting these and ones. And then when he wasn't doing that right out of the gate, the thought was, he's not the best at the 3. Put him down low. He's, get him in the paint. He can, if you put a bigger guy on him, he's mobile enough to get around him. If you put somebody smaller on him because he's 7'3", with the wingspan, he's got the post moves, do that. Plus he can pass. But no, Dusty knew what he was doing there. And Yaks, who was shooting not only 3 times more the amount of triples that he was at UAB, his percentage is higher. Okay, shoot more 3s and then shoot a higher percentage. All right. That's it. That's what you want. That's great stuff. Let's look at the box score for Michigan. We'll look at some of the metrics that are out there. But a game like this, again, this one, maybe I should screenshot it. Maybe I should go and get it printed out. And maybe I should frame the box score for Yendenborg. I have never smashed it together like that, but I kind of liked it. Lendenborg, there it is again. Just a thing of beauty. Can we all just sit and admire it for a second? 29 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists on 8 of 11 shooting, 4 of 5 from downtown, perfect from the free throw line. Committed 1 foul in 37 minutes, also had a pair of swipes and 3 blocks and just 1 turnover. Mara, if it wasn't for Yax's incredible night, you would say, nice job a day. 18 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. His biggest he was down low. They thought he may have traveled, but he threw a behind the back pass with the clock running out, shot clock running out to Cadeau, who launched a triple with a huge arc and ended up splashing it through. It's like, wow, man, what a sequence that was. Look at Mara's efficiency. 8 of 10 field goals. I don't know how many players I've ever seen. I haven't, he's the biggest player ever in Michigan history. So I've never seen a guy, the worm, Josh Moore or whatever else, but I've seen a lot of 7-footers play basketball as you have. There's not a lot of the 7-footers who are in the paint and they just throw lobs to him. And he's just like, he's right next to the rim and he's just not jumping. He's just throwing them down from all over. He's throwing them down on the move. He's kind of bent over and he's throwing it down. Sometimes he gets it right in the middle of the paint and he's throwing it down with one hand. He's good at alley-oops and he's got the Spaniard touch, the way that he can pass the ball. 8 of 10 from the floor, 2 of 3 from the free throw line. You're going to take that from Mara. That's been one of the things that you'd like to see from him. Improvement at the stripe, because teams they run another guy at him. You have to try to force him to pass, but he's an excellent passer. So then you hammer him if you can. And he's making his free throws. And he had 2 blocks. Cadeau, I would put, if we had a Maize and Blue review unsung player of the game, I would give it to Elliot Cadeau, who had 12 points, 10 feeds. And Cadeau, to spark Michigan in the second half, he would drive the lane and he was spoon-feeding the bigs. Spoon-feeding where these guys, they're all excellent. Yax and Mara and these guys are excellent. But they basically just have to stand there while Cadeau is driving and put their hands out and he spoon-feeds them. And those guys are just flushing it. Easy bunnies. It was a thing of beauty from Cadeau, who you watch him play. He is a maestro. He's excellent defender. Right now he is. I don't know if it's going to change or not, but he deserves all of the credit of running this team and his ability to get into the lane, his 3-point shot. He was 2 of 3 again tonight. He is something else. He is better than Donaldson. He committed a lot of turnovers. He had 3 tonight, but the way that he runs this team, and it's his shooting, his scoring ability, and now that passing. He's someone who's nice to watch. Burnett got these threes that he had. He had 2 of them, 2 of 2 from downtown. He got those early, and you leave him open, he'll shoot it. And there you go. Morris Johnson Jr., we've already talked about him. This was an off night for him. He got into some foul trouble. He had 8 points and 6 boards, but the other guys got his back. And he was able to come in late and affect the game down in the post, which is still nice. Big surprise here. And it's LJ Kaysen. Kaysen is a surprise in many ways. The biggest surprise is that he is now turned into Steph Curry. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's now been, consecutive games where it doesn't matter where he's at on the floor. I mean, it's not like he's just straddling the 3-point line and they'll throw it to him and he waits 5 seconds and then he'll throw it up there. He'll be 25 feet and he'll say, all right, I'm going to just shoot over the defense. Maryland's going to play this zone. Boom, zone buster comes back down next time. Boom, from the wing. I don't know how it's going to play out if it continues like that. His game has gone from, hey, nice backup point guard I don't even know if you'd say that. He's a backup point guard. This is, heading into the season, who can take guys off the dribble and he can get his own in the paint. But, he's got a long way to go. Well, that long way, he took the shortcut because now he seems like he's arrived. He's knocking down threes, and he's a real factor. These guys got to be tickled. The whole Michigan staff, they have to sit around and I'm sure these guys are I know they're working really hard and everything else, but at some point they got to be elbowing themselves and saying, oh, this is great and everything. And then one of them has to say, but how about LJ? I mean, how about what he's doing? How about Kaysen knocking down 3 after 3? Because if you look, the bench really didn't have it tonight. Trey McKinney with a goose egg. Cheddar had 4. Gale wasn't really out there a whole lot, and it wasn't a real big factor, but he had 9 points. But it was Kaysen. But that goes back to Michigan again, having the size and the passing ability and just the strength and the depth, where if their depth, Kaysen was there, but if the other guys they can rely on then their the big 2, which was Yaks and Cadeau. This thing really, in a lot of ways, was it was a masterpiece by Yaks, but really the second half, a masterpiece by Michigan, who showed why they are the number 2 and on their way up team in the country. Speaking of that, the number 2 team in the country, they've got a lot of metrics. Arizona's playing right now as we speak. We'll have to check in on that score, won't we? At some point. Let's do it right now. Arizona. Why wouldn't the Wildcats, the number 1 team in the country. We'll see if that loads up. Oh, here it is. They are at Alabama. How about it's a Newton Classic, so it might not be at Alabama. But the Wildcats are up by 6 points, but they're playing, Alabama's a top 25 team, actually ranked number 12. So that's a very losable game. Michigan sits there at number 2. They're still Ken Pom number 1. Their offensive efficiency was 11. It's moved to 12, but, they went for a bill tonight. So I don't know, maybe that will get into the top 10. Can't go any further than number 1, and their defense is number 1. They can't do any better there, but maybe the defense will drop 1 or 2 and the offense will go up. I don't know. They're doing pretty good when it comes down to that. The net evaluation tool, the NCAA evaluation tool, that's what net means. Michigan stays and continues to be number 1 since they broke this out or debuted it, I think now 2 weeks ago. Michigan has been number 1 in the initial net, and they stay as the number 1 team net-wise. How about that? Let's get to some of these points from the Michigan fans. And for that, we go to the feedback. Should we start at the back and work up? Okay. All right. Antoine says let's start, it's probably better to start at the beginning. Would you read a book? Have you ever done that? You get a book and you start peeking towards the end, like, don't peek at the last page. Although I may have done that before, but I definitely have been reading a book and then you flip it almost to the end and just like read a couple. But sometimes you spoil it for yourself, and you don't want to do that. You read something like, "Whoa, I shouldn't have read that." So let's not do that with the feedback from the folks. For me, it's a Merry Christmas. If you're watching this, if you have watched this particular show, I'd have to go back and see when I did a first Maize and Blue Review podcast, but I would think one of the first initial shows that Antoine may have joined in, but he has not been around for 6 months. I don't know, maybe even a year. I think for 2025, he may have shown up once or twice. And then Friday, he was just around. And there he was yesterday. The return of Antoine. And here he is again today, making the point on basketball. He would mention basketball a few times, if I recall, a few years ago, saying that he has lost his love of the game, essentially. But here he is saying the defense is stifling, and it's reminding him of the 80s and 90s. They don't settle for threes. They take it to the hole. And he says they're playing like the Pistons. I think that is a excellent feedback to start. And it sounds like he's falling back in love with the game. How about that? And he says it. The Wolverines and Pistons have made him fall in love with basketball again. How about that? Now, that should warm your heart. Here's SW Lion. Michigan actually got tested for half of the game. Nice bounce back in the second half. 28 assists versus 9 turnovers. I like that. Antoine likes the defense as well. Some other people in here. Dan says this is legit one of the best college basketball teams I've ever watched, not just at Michigan. They're up there with the UConn team from a few years ago. Well, they've now played 10 games. The part about, well, it's early, or Tom Izzo was saying, I don't know, was it last week? I just watched one of his news conferences where he wasn't anointing anyone yet. I'm not really anointing Michigan as the April 6th, national champ, but, I'm enjoying the ride, but along the way, when I see people say, "Yeah, this is," I'm not saying I'm agreeing with them. Yeah, that's great. They look great. AJ says they needed to be tested somewhat. I don't want them thinking everything will be easy. Now that's a good point. As I was watching the game, I watched the game, and then I'm on the Maize and Blue Review. We have a live feed during the game. And as you can imagine, live feeds, anything that enters someone's head, a lot of times they just type it out. And a lot of like, oh, the referees suck, or we can't get a call. You see a lot of that kind of stuff. And, Michigan fans will feel that way. This was the first time, maybe the first couple of games, there were a few things, but, for the last 6 games, it's just been Route City. Everybody was just, it's just been a parade. I love a parade. But it wasn't a parade tonight. People were like, ooh, the defense. And so this is what you can expect. You're going to see the other team, the crowd's going to be going bonkers. When you have, and AJ, you know this, when you're the opposing team and the top-ranked team, or the number 2 team of the country, and Big Bad Michigan is coming in, the fans are in just a tizzy, getting after it. They want to rush the court. Everyone knows the opposing team. You want to knock the undefeated Wolverines off. Keegan is impressed with Yaxel. Big Ten games from blue-blooded Wolverine, saying that they're always more physical. I would agree with that. BK says Maryland tried playing dirty to stay in the game. Well, Maryland ended up having one of their players thrown out. You have to play physical against Michigan. I would think that because Michigan's front line, Morris Johnson Jr. is a combination of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart of the Pistons. It's kind of like I don't know if those two had a kid. I don't know. That seems. How about you just put those two together? His game is similar like that, but he's rough and he's mean and he's physical. You better, if you're the opposing coach, say you better get in there and put your hard hat on and put your mouthpiece in and get ready because Michigan's coming in. They're not a finesse team. But dirty. You better play hard. You better play physical. CNC Music Factory really coming along from Keegan. That is Cadeau and Kaysen. Agreed. T.I. What's up, T.I.? LJ made a huge impact off the bench. Yes, he did. Yes, teams will be trying to get under Michigan's skin. And, Dusty was asked on Monday, hey, Dusty, everything's going great. What do you want to see from this team? They're not perfect. And Dusty, with not much time elapsing to the end of the question to when he responded, said, free throws. I want to see free throws. Michigan shot 86% tonight, 19 of 22. BK saying that's a great job. That is a great job. Antoine is the GOAT. You are correct about that. Can Dusty coach football too? Little lighthearted feedback from Michael. I like it. Made me laugh. Under par 68 says U of M won because Washington was a fool and Payne got hurt. Well, it was a huge factor in the game. I mentioned it right out of the gate. To say, I would rephrase that under par and maybe, we could work on it together. It was a big part of the game that Washington got thrown out because of his foolishness. I would agree with you. And that Payne got hurt. But to declare it that they won because of just that. Now, Michigan went on a 41-17 run after Washington got thrown out of the game. So I understand where you're coming from. I would just tweak it a little bit. See, people are talking football. Once you start doing that, people have a hard time. Michigan is used to teams kind of giving up. The Big Ten teams aren't going to quit. No, I mean, I think you watch a game like tonight, and it's why you don't hear, undefeated talk. There's 10 games and, 25 to go. I mean, what are we even talking about? But, when they play so well, you at least, let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 to go. So let's just play the third of the season, and they've got their tougher games at, playing Duke and Washington, at Michigan State, at Purdue. I mean, probably not. But then look, here was a Maryland team that was 6-4. Glad it wasn't Duke tonight. Yeah, look, I got news for everyone out there. If the other team shoots 50% from downtown and they're throwing a bunch of them up like Maryland was tonight. I know Maryland hit 10 threes in the first half. They shot 56%. They shot 18 threes and made 10 of them. Guard them. Coit is a lefty with great footwork and is running backwards with this step back. And he's dropping it, and there's not much you can do when guys are doing that. You get to run them on. You talk about running guys up the 3-point line. When you got a guy that's catching and running backwards and shooting 25-foot step back threes, I don't know, pretty tough. I would agree that Michigan wore the Terps down, especially without their two guys, their two bigs that they lost, which was a huge part of this game. People enjoying on the feedback talking football. SW Lion says it's nice to see them get the turnovers under control. Yeah, the turnovers, they went out to Vegas. Wasn't it? I've never been to Vegas, but I don't think they did like the Tony Soprano, where Tony went out. What did Tony do? First he hooked up with Chrissy's girl, and then he took some psychedelics. But the point is that Tony went out and stayed up all night out in the desert on peyote or whatever. But he had a real coming to Jesus type moment out there. He still ended up being a murderous savage and everything else. But the point was that he went out to Vegas and had a coming to Jesus. Michigan went out there, and the turnovers that had spilled over last year, it was a bugaboo, and then it was kind of the same thing at the start. You're like, all right, Dusty, everybody likes you, and you seem like a really nice guy and a really good coach, but your team turns the ball over too much. Now it clicked. Whatever happened out in Vegas, it didn't stay out in Vegas. It has continued on, and it's a credit to the Michigan team. Great job. Good reminder, Lion, when it comes down to the turnovers. A lot of Deli talk and a lot of fish talk. Look, what I noticed today, I'll give my my read on the Michigan coaching search. We are just 2 days into the coaching search, and I saw people like freaking, where's Deli? And what's DeBoer's playing a football game. What's he playing that game tomorrow? We gotta wait to the weekend. Now, I'm not telling people to just log off and we'll see you Monday. In fact, I don't know. Can you enjoy the coaching search though? I don't. You're we want Deli, and you're just all in on him. And he's emotional, and he's talking to his players, and now he's not coming. He's coming. Okay. I don't. Can you fall in love with Deli, and then he breaks your heart. You're in love with DeBoer, and then he goes radio silent. I mean, he's got a game to coach. I mean, I don't. It was a good respite to watch basketball tonight. Now we're back to Josh Henschke, who, I don't know, he stays up till 2 or 3. The publisher of the Maize and Blue Review, he was up at 3:00 in the morning last night, answering questions and putting out information on the coaching search. I mean, this guy's going to sleep. It seemed like he was up really early too. I don't know. You could take your laptop right in the bed. I pictured Josh, he kind of falling asleep, and then he's up. Oh, Deli. This will get you up on the message quick. Let's see. Can I get that one up there? Let's try it. I'm sorry. For some reason, I've got that in there, but if somebody does drop a bag on us, it's nice. And it does get your question going to the top, like this one. The Lost Angel. With wings and a halo. Looks like a Dillingham is off the board. He got a new contract. I doubt we get DeBoer. Not sure who we are getting. Will be interesting. Yeah. But what was it? Jake Butt was talking about that they should have opened it up last time. Great, Jake, especially if you said that, not retroactively. But his point is that this job, you should have 10, 15 people that are really would be excellent candidates. And I feel like that's what's going to happen here. But a lot of them, like Deli, maybe DeBoer, and whoever the next, I don't know, Fish, kind of, there's some things that are, Fish doesn't really knock everyone's socks off. It's like, oh, Fish. But Dillingham would have knocked folks' socks off. I mean, there are people who are just in a trance with him. I think DeBoer also has those type of qualities. So, Minter, some people, they love Harbaugh, understandably. And then Minter, who was perfect, in the national championship season, they see him and they think, yeah, but but there's many people that think that Michigan needs to move away from any kind of Harbaugh tree. I'm not one of those. But Minter still in the Minter Fish right now territory. My guess is, and I'm not expecting a coach by Monday, that there'll be another 2 to 3 coaches' names that'll pop up that you'll think, oh yeah, ooh, I hope that guy, So we'll see how that goes. Here's Rip Star. Thank you. Brandon says Michigan hockey is off till after New Year's too. Yeah, these guys, some of them, not some of them, they go to class and then you get the Christmas break. College students get this break. You want them to play every night, every other night, see some back-to-backs and everything. But no, that's going to happen when it comes down to that. Rip is saying that Fish is the new head coach. I have a friend who's a big gambler, and he has been he's posting himself, but then he's periodically, I told him, hey, when you see something that jumps out, because he sits online and looks at the probabilities of the betting sites on what they're saying. Oh, and he was sending me a Dillingham one yesterday. Oh, Deli, 60%. He's the odds-on favorite for Michigan to land him. He's telling me he did just when the basketball game was on. I looked over and he had sent me the same thing about Fish. That Fish is now the leader in the clubhouse in terms of Vegas and what they think. And, Vegas. BK wishes Michigan would have offered Matt Campbell. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He says, I think we would have offered Matt Campbell if he didn't go to Penn State. Yeah, Matt Campbell's funny in that after 2020, when a lot of folks thought former players, I think it was like Brian Greasy, I feel that more than half of the fan base, there were they were just ready. As much as they liked Jim Harbaugh and he was, had done a nice job, he plateaued in 2018 and he kept losing to Ohio State. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would have been 6. And they're like, okay, at some point. And so, but the point is that Campbell was going to be that guy. More coaching search stuff. The Ravens might be breaking all that stuff up. That's why I said call Todd Monken. We might even be able to get a lot of pieces from them. Well, look, here's the thing about the Ravens. I mean, how far along do you want this to go? I mean, if they are breaking the Ravens are one game behind the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers got old man Rodgers out there. And I know that Lamar, although Lamar came back a little bit last week, so maybe he's getting a little bit healthier. We'll see what happens tomorrow with him and everything. I think the point with the Ravens, if they were eliminated from the playoffs, if they lost tomorrow, and you think, all right, well then you start thinking about not only talk about the departure from the Harbaughs. How about John Harbaugh? So, and I love John Harbaugh. And I would just emphasize that, I mean, but it's going to play out. I think the Ravens will probably still make the playoffs. And so then what are we talking about? How far that would have to play? And Monken might be the same thing. And then I would like to know, when you sit around and think about who the next coach is, you say, you want a coach that has been a head coach before. Well, then Monken's out. So's Minner. So's Brady. I don't know if they're putting that kind of filter on it. Has to one a number of places. If you start doing those things, those sound good. Well, I'd like a coach who's won at more than one place and obviously has been a head coach. Well, you really condense the numbers. Deli doesn't fit that, but DeBoer does. Fish doesn't. So I'm not sure what their filters are. This, I believe, is a little is kind of a half joke. No, it is. He says, just kidding. It wasn't a mistake. I was going to say it was a mistake logging onto Twitter. I go on to Twitter once in a while, like today. And there was, it's just a roller coaster, a coaching search. The Michigan fan, we're 2 days in. People are having a hard time. I'm having a hard time. It's been a wild week. I mean, if I see another AI Sharon Moore generated, there's a million of them out there, and I watch them. Why am I talking about that? Oh, there's somebody that there was that seemed to be a Twitter. A Twitter faction, a Twitter group that really was convinced that Poggi has a legitimate shot to be Michigan's next head coach. Now, I don't think that he has any chance. And maybe they were thinking about, goofy Adam Schefter, who was out there talking about he's a Michigan man and don't count out Biff. I mean, that's what he said. So, hey, Adam Schefter, while he had his Michigan pom-poms in his hand. But I'm going to tell everybody that there's zero chance that Biff Poggi is going to be the next head coach at Michigan. Nice guy, did a great job in filling in, except at the end of the half against Nebraska, where he didn't know what he was doing with the clock management. He was put in a tough spot. But there's zero chance that Biff Poggi is going to be. I was going to say, Urban Meyer, but that's not true. Biff Poggi has a better chance, but but zero. Meyer has like negative, chance, so that's never going to happen. But Biff has 0% chance of being the next head coach. But so I think that anybody that tweets about that or says anything about that I feel, you do it and then you get a bunch of people calling you an idiot, but you are getting engagement. And for a lot of people, that's what it's all about. They put something about Deli and nobody says anything, but then they say, Biff, he did pretty good the 2 games he was there. And then about, 20 people call him an idiot. And he's like, hey, I'm getting engagement. There you go. People are ranking the coaching candidates on the feedback here. Here's another question from Brandon who says, what do you think about us opening up an investigation into the Michigan Athletic Department? Yeah. Along with Brandon watching all of the AI and then actual, you know, gifs and every joke about Sharon Moore, I also saw the footage, like all of you, where Sharon Moore was, sitting in that little closet with a white jail clothes on, and I just saw him. Was it, you know, last Monday? He was in a great mood, and then I've seen this video, and I've saw all of these different national news shows. We've got breaking news, the Michigan coach, and it's been this national story. But so when if you just had nothing to do with football and anything to do, and you're just watching the national news, it's like, well, here's another Michigan story, breaking and entering, of craziness. The Sharon Moore story is crazy, but then what happens is like, oh yeah, Matt Weiss, and then Shemmy. You just go through all of these things, and so you understand like what's going on there. You should probably look at the whole thing, and that's where there's a lot of people that are like they should fire Ward. Is that he's the one? It all happened underneath him. What I would say is that most people should be upset at Weiss and Moore and Harbaugh and Stallions. I mean, these are the guys. But Ward, actually, he's the one that he is the athletic director. So I understand why I don't think at this time next year that Ward, even though I think people, they just, he's an easy target. But yeah, I don't think he survives all this. So there's just so much. If we sat here and went through it, I was like, that's really preposterous how much stuff that has gone on. I don't know. This seems like we're going down, Mike Hart. I think this is another, maybe. Do you mean Tony Alford? I mean, is that what you meant? Tony Alford's the running back coach, and he's doing a great job. And, Hart left, and, he's not around anymore, so I'm not really sure. And talking about the different coaches and everything else and who you like and who you're not, the new head coach is going to come in, and he can sweep the whole damn, place out and, start anew. And I'm going to be all right with any of that. I know people's like, you got to keep out, sure. I would like to keep. There's a number of players I would like to keep, and probably a couple coaches too. But I got to let the new coach come in and make his move. All right. Rip saying he likes Ward, but not having an HR at the time of the termination is egregious. I would agree with that. Rip, I didn't know that, but I asked my wife, who was she's not specifically in HR, but she's around HR. And she said, yes, that's exactly what anybody should do, especially in a situation like this, and that's a huge mistake by Ward Manuel. That might be the one that ends up costing him his job. You can go through all of that. People are like, well, what about the background check on Wise? What about the background check on Stallions? I don't know. I think they did background checks on those guys. And even if you would have put them through the most arduous background checks in the world, I don't know if you were going to find anything. Did Matt Weiss have a bunch of, porn? I don't know, whatever he was doing, the deviant stealing of photos before he came to me. Maybe he did. And maybe, so I'm not, but he should have done a routine social media check on Shemi. That was a gaffe by Ward, and not having someone there at that too. Those two things I put at the top of the list. Now, these other ones, I know there are a lot of, what about, people point to, I mean, there's like 10, there might be 20 different things that you could point to about how he handled this, about how he handled that. The Shemi and the last move that he did not make with the HR, those there to me are the most damning out of all of it. Yeah, and what if he lands DeBoer? And are the same people that, then fire him. That's it. I mean, you're right about that. Like, we can agree that should have happened. Let's get to this. Basketball has turned into a football show, but that can happen sometimes when I'm doing a football show. I talk some basketball. Let's look at that upcoming schedule. And for that, it is brought to you by the Maize and Blue Review. Hey, you like the coaching search? You like getting the latest details? You don't want to be led astray by like some, DoorDash report story or something. Well, we deal in facts and with superb reporters that are up all night giving you the latest in the coaching search. You can get involved right now with that instant access. Follow along every second. You don't have to hit F5, but when a story moves, it says, "Hey, here's a new story." It refreshes itself. What's better than that? Give yourself or that Michigan fan in your life who wants to follow the coaching search and basketball and hockey and everything else the gift of the Maize and Blue Review. Go to on3.com, hit that subscribe button. We'd love to see you over there. Here it is, that schedule. Wow, Michigan's off for a long time now. Michigan's 10-0, the basketball team. They will take on LaSalle, and that game is Sunday, December the 21st, 4 o'clock on Peacock. Then, this isn't a fun week if you're someone that doesn't like streaming and doesn't have Peacock or Big Ten Plus, because you got Peacock against LaSalle. Then you got Monday, December the 29th, McNeese. That's on Big Ten Plus. And then you get into the new year. Hey, 2026, Michigan should be undefeated. Can we say that? 11-0, 12-0. Michigan should go undefeated for the rest of this year. Insert those they'll be undefeated all year jokes. But here we go. How about this one? January the 2nd, 2026, USC. 7 o'clock on Peacock. Friday, that's the upcoming schedule for Michigan. More sliding into people's DMs? I don't know. It's too soon for me. I was looking through my own as an aside. My own Instagram follows to see other than I always forget OF. I don't know. I don't have any OF followers or they might follow me. I don't know. But I was just looking to see like if somebody was putting my follows on blast, what would they say? And as I was going through, it's like I don't know. I don't have any that's on there that I'm looking at that I think that or that anybody would be like, why are you following this person? I think I have I got a pretty clean follower list. I just get a text. It says, you better not. It's from Marianne Fithian. She's listening. I didn't know she was watching the show. Maybe she's listening to the show. What does this team have to do to be ranked number one? Goodness sakes. It's something if you want to get excited about. I wouldn't get too upset about it. So, Michigan beat an unranked Maryland team on the road. That's nice. And, they were impressive after being down by 5. But, Arizona is beating number 12 Alabama by 20 points right now. So you're saying, oh, put Michigan number 1. Go ahead. I mean, if you really are watching, Eric, but this is you're a Michigan fan. Maybe you're watching that. Are you watching Arizona saying, oh, Michigan's way better than them? I'm just looking at the score. I understand why a writer would keep Arizona at number 1. I know people are like, oh, my God, but what about the Ken Palm and the net? Oh, those are fair points. I wouldn't get my panties in a bunch. Sorry, maybe I should clean that up. I just wouldn't get too riled up about Michigan not being number 1 if they keep winning. Let's see. Arizona, this was a very losable game. I do hope that Michigan elevates to being the number 1 team at some point this year. I also hope that they beat Michigan State twice, Purdue. I hope Michigan wins the Big Ten tournament. I would like them to be the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. I want to see them go to the Final Four, and I want to see them cut down the nets in Indianapolis on April the 6th. Those are my things that I want to see. But, the very last one, you could take all of those other things that I just said, and if you guaranteed me that Michigan would get the last one, the April the 6th win, I would take that and you could eliminate all the other ones. That's not going to be as much fun. If they never get to number 1, if they split with Michigan State, they lose to Purdue, they don't win the Big Ten regular season, that would be not nice. That would not be something that would be something that you'd be looking forward to, certainly. And then they get bounced in the Big Ten tournament. No. But I guess you can't take the Final Four away if they're going to win the championship. So that's it. Yeah, this thing about peaking early. Yeah, I don't know. This is along the same line. Is a loss for Michigan going to be good? Will that be good for them? I don't subscribe to that. The peaking early. I want to play the best every time out. Give me the example of peaking too early. I mean, are they going to fall off a cliff and then, not play well? Oh, they peaked early. As an example of peaking early, and if you run into some injuries or something, you just start playing. They get full of themselves. They, start acting, being me guys and stuff like that. And, that they're, peaking early that way. I do get this part. I want Michigan to be playing their best basketball in March, late February and March. So they're playing great right now. Can we get them to play like they are right now and fast forward it to March? So I don't know. Peaking too early is an interesting one. Out of everything, if they were playing bad, it'd be like, oh, team, they ain't going anywhere. Oh, they got this. They need to do that. They need to do this. And I would take the bullets. I'll take the criticism, not myself, but if I was a Michigan fan and people say, oh, you guys are peaking too early, I'd say, okay. That's the one thing you're going to say. You guys are too good. You guys are playing way too good. It's like me with my, my fantasy team. I've got to buy this week, and I've got Bijan Robinson, and he went off on Thursday night, and I was saying, how about saving those for next week? You do that when your team is winning by 30 or something. Hey, take some of those points and let's save them till next week. You guys are peaking too early. I mean, there's always got to be something. You're so great. You've peaked too early. You're winning by too many. Save some of those. And maybe a loss would be a good thing. The hell with all of that. I'm not buying any of that. I'm going to stay consistent. I'm going to stay. I'm not worried about playing really well. Shooting I don't want to say that. Just playing their best basketball right now. And then I don't think a loss is good for them. So I would like to see them continuing to play excellent, looking for little things they can play better. And I'm not going to be on here. Oh, they lost. Probably a good thing. Oh. But, I mean, you do hear that all the time. And that's probably a good thing for them. Refocus. Is it more important to not peak at the right time or to lose a game so then you can reset everything? I actually think it's the latter because, let's just say Michigan wins their next 10 games, they're going to be 20-0. People will start talking about them being undefeated, and that can be a little bit of pressure on them. They have peaked for the first 20 games, and you want to peak for the last 10. Why would I go to Chick-fil-A tomorrow? What's going on at Chick-fil-A? Free sandwiches or something? No, I'm not going to Chick-fil-A. I don't know where there's a Chick-fil-A. I mean, I like Chick-fil-A. I'm not really a big Chick-fil-A guy. However, when they had the Popeyes chicken sandwich about, I don't know, when was that craze? Like 3 years ago? And I like chicken sandwiches. But, they were lining up around the block. Hey, you want to wait an hour in the Popeyes drive-thru for a chicken sandwich? And I was thinking, I like chicken sandwiches, but I don't want to wait an hour in a drive-thru for a chicken sandwich. So after the craze went by the wayside, I don't know, like a whole year or something, I had one. It felt like I had to wait for 20 minutes, and I was like the one car in front of me at Popeyes. Come on. Kind of a bad location or whatever. Bad service. But I got the sandwich, and I thought, this is a hell of a chicken sandwich. But I haven't had one since. But now maybe Popeyes is the one to go to. Oh, there's one in Ann Arbor. Just open in Ann Arbor. I'm going to stay a million miles away from that. There are some things that it's nice when you want to be part of, but how many things do I want to wait online for necessarily? But I know a great restaurant, you go in, I think that's part of it. Oh, you got to wait. Oh, come on. You know what's going to happen? Hot box the car while you wait. So get somebody to drive you and smoke a bunch of joints and then get a bunch of chicken sandwiches. Okay. Fill this bad boy up, baby. Now we're, I hadn't thought about doing anything like that. I was just going to watch some football tomorrow. So, yeah, LJ has been great. That's it. That's it. I think the show it's time to go. We will see you coming up on Monday. I don't think Michigan will have delivered a coach at that point. I know this, but we'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. And I encourage you. Love to see you over there. If you do subscribe, say hello. So I can say, oh yeah, it's Rip. All right. Now that I said I'm going to leave, here's one more. Michigan Go Blue ZT1GD is saying, go get the Zingerman's crispy chicken sandwich with pickles and pepper ranch. I am a big fan of Zingerman's. I like Zingerman's Deli, and I also like the Roadhouse. I love pretty much every sandwich and every single thing that they put out over there. So I have never had the chicken sandwich. I'm usually going like Reuben and slaw. I mean, you can go anywhere you want with that, but they do great. They do great chicken just over at the Roadhouse. And I love the hot sauce that they have with it. They do great sauces, great breads. It's where to go. Eggnog. Let's get some eggnog and rye whiskey. What do you think, Hadley? I wouldn't mind sitting around with Hadley with some eggnog and rye whiskey. Arizona will remain number 1. They beat Bama by 20. Yeah, you're right. Oh, chicken sandwich at the Roadhouse. Oh, the Roadhouse. The best time to go to the Roadhouse is for breakfast. They got great. I talked about breads and things. You like things like pancakes. That's the place to go. Butterscotch pudding. Great hot sauce. Too late for all of that. All right. Now that's it. Now we're heading out. Thanks so much for joining us. Everybody have a great night. We will talk with you coming up on Monday. Thanks for watching and listening to the Maize and Blue Review. Why not take the next step and join the Maize and Blue Review? Go to on3.com. You like a coaching search? We got hot boards. We got the chicken sandwich of coaching searches going on at the Maize and Blue Review. So head on over to on3.com. You like the basketball coverage? It's there. It's happening all day, all night. Recruiting, that's kind of taking a back step, but that will come into the forefront along with the transfer portal sooner than you know. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.